They forced her to marry the ruthless mountain man because no one else would take her, because fear ruled that land more than law, and because his name alone was said to be enough to break a woman's spirit before she ever reached his door. Snow fell heavy the morning she was sent into the mountains, each step of the wagon pulling her farther from everything familiar, closer to a man whispered about like a curse. People said he had hands stained by blood, eyes hardened by years of killing, and a heart long buried beneath stone and rage. To them, this was not a marriage. It was a sentence. Before the story unfolds any further, take a moment right now. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the idea that even the most feared hearts can change, please like this video, share it with someone who loves powerful stories, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel Wild West Story. Your support keeps these stories alive. She had learned early that survival often meant silence. Born into a struggling frontier family, she grew up watching her mother trade pride for safety and her father bend beneath debts he could never repay. When he died, the land took everything else. What remained was a young woman with no dowry, no protection, and no future anyone cared to save. The town council called it practical. The preacher called it God's will. But deep down, everyone knew the truth. Sending her to the mountain man kept him satisfied and the town safe. Fear made cruel decisions feel reasonable. The journey to the mountains felt endless. The road narrowed, trees thickened, and the air grew sharp with cold and isolation. She clutched her coat as the last familiar landmark disappeared behind her. Every story she had heard replayed in her mind. Men who never returned from his land. Animals found torn apart. A cabin hidden so deep in the mountains that sunlight barely touched it. She expected violence the moment she arrived, expected to be met by a monster shaped like a man. But when the wagon stopped, there was only silence. The cabin stood solid and worn, built with care rather than chaos. Smoke rose from the chimney in a steady line. The door opened slowly, and there he was. Tall, broad, scarred by life rather than cruelty. His eyes were sharp, yes, but not wild. There was no anger in his stance, no hunger for dominance. Just exhaustion. The kind that comes from years of carrying burdens alone. She waited for harshness, for cruelty, for proof of every warning she had been given. Instead, he stepped aside and let her enter, keeping his distance as if afraid of frightening her further. That moment confused her more than fear ever could. Life with him was not gentle at first, but it was not brutal either. The days were long and quiet. He rose before dawn, worked until his body ached, and returned without complaint. He spoke little, but when he did, his words were careful, chosen like tools meant not to wound. He never touched her without purpose. Never raised his voice. Never demanded more than survival required. The mountain man everyone feared was a man who had learned that solitude was safer than trust. She soon saw the scars others never mentioned. Not just on his skin, but in the way he paused before entering a room, the way he listened to the wind like it might carry danger, the way his hands sometimes trembled when he thought no one was watching. The ruthless killer of rumors was, in truth, a man shaped by loss. His family had been slaughtered years ago by bandits the town later protected for trade. When he sought justice, he found betrayal instead. So he left. And the mountains became his refuge, his punishment, and his shield. At first, she remained guarded. Kindness had never been free in her life. She expected it to be taken back at a cost. But days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. Winter tightened its grip, yet inside the cabin, there was warmth. He ensured she ate first. He repaired her boots without being asked. He left small offerings of wildflowers on the table when spring finally broke through the snow. The greatest challenge she faced was not fear of him, but fear of hope. Allowing herself to believe he was different felt dangerous. Trust, once broken too often, becomes heavier than fear. But slowly, without force or demand, he earned it. The mountains tested them both. A harsh storm trapped them inside for days, supplies running low. She fell ill, fever stealing her strength. In those moments, she saw the truth more clearly than ever. He stayed by her side without rest, melting snow, tending the fire, using hands once rumored to kill to now protect life. There was desperation in his care, as if losing her would confirm every cruel belief the world had placed upon him. When she recovered, something between them shifted. Not romance born of fantasy, but connection forged by survival and shared pain. They became partners in the truest sense. Working the land together. healing together, learning that safety could exist without control. Word eventually reached the town that the mountain man had taken a wife and that she still lived. Curiosity replaced fear. Traders ventured closer. Hunters crossed his land without vanishing. The myth began to crack. Then came the men who had destroyed his life years ago, now desperate and fleeing the law. They believed the mountains would hide them, that the man who lived there would be as ruthless as the stories claimed. What they found instead was a man who had already chosen a different path. He could have killed them. The past screamed for it. But he didn't. He turned them in, not for reward, but to finally close a chapter that had poisoned his soul. That act changed everything. The town could no longer pretend he was a monster. And they could no longer ignore what they had done to her. Shame spread faster than fear ever had. People began to see that the real cruelty had not lived in the mountains, but in their own decisions. For her, the greatest transformation was internal. The woman sent away as a burden became someone valued, protected, and strong. She learned that love did not always arrive with passion or promises, but sometimes with quiet respect and unwavering presence. She learned that people were rarely what the world decided they were. Years passed. The cabin grew into a homestead. Laughter replaced silence. The mountains, once a symbol of exile, became a sanctuary. Travelers who lost their way found shelter there. The man once feared became known as a protector. And the woman once discarded became the heart of that refuge. As this story nears its end, if it has touched something inside you, if it made you feel hope where there once was fear, please take a moment to like this video, share it, and subscribe to Wild West Story. Your engagement helps these stories reach others who need them. And before the ending fades, I have a special request for you. Please comment below and tell us what this story made you feel. Your words matter more than you know. In the end, the truth was simple and powerful. They forced her to marry a ruthless mountain man to protect themselves. But what they created instead was a family born from compassion, a legend reshaped by mercy, and a reminder that the most feared hearts often hide the deepest kindness. And sometimes, when the world casts someone aside, it is only because their story is meant to be written somewhere braver, higher, and free.